Hello, and welcome to the Fielded Voice. I am one of the co-hosts, Alexandria Nickel. Wow, I just dead named my full name. Anyways, not dead name, but I mentioned my full name accidentally, like an idiot. Anyways, that's already out there. Also known as Ozma in the Dark. I use pronouns she, they. I'm here with my other co-hosts, Christy, Abbey. How are you doing, Christy?
Hello, I'm glad to be here. Let's go with that. I'm
Yeah.
glad to be here.
Sorry, I wasn't clear. We do the introductions first, and then we start talking about this topic. I did not make that clear. As usual, podcasts are full of me messing up.
It's
fine.
Interruption.
We don't seem to be streaming on YouTube.
We're not streaming on YouTube?
We are not?
Wait, it says live. Wait, why is there no data? Why is there no data? Oh, goddammit.
We are streaming live on YouTube.
Is it not the sound? Is it not in the...
Goddammit. It's going to get light in 3 hours.
we are streaming on YouTube. It is quite there.
Just to remind you how late it is here.
Okay, maybe it's just me. I'm not seeing it up there. I mean...
okay, so I think... Wow, I am totally failing. Okay, it is up here with the wrong title. I accidentally did create new. So, oh, goddammit. Well, I swear I have done this correctly before. I'm just gonna copy some things.
When you get too complacent, that's when it hits you.
I'm just gonna copy a couple things. Everything should be fine. Nah, no, I am not. This should be copied.
Well, I'm glad I didn't just go, well, it must be me, and just let it roll on faith.
Okay, so it's not where I intended it to be. Changes made. Is it still... God damn it. Live. Where... Okay. Blah blah blah. Details. Okay, I know. I saw it. It is still live. No, wait, no. Okay.
It's still live. I just commented to Mistress Angelica's.
Okay. So it's live. It's just not where it was intended to be. Because I forgot to do something. Anyways, how are you, Perfict?
I'm doing pretty well. He, him, and on the subject of the political leanings, I would describe myself as a libertarian foundations, in that basing them on the individual liberties, and but I end up being left of center, so I am a liberal.
Sophia Botha, how are you feeling? How are you today?
Well, it's tomorrow where you are.
Well, it's regardless. It's today for you.
Yes, I'm fine. My political leanings, I'm a socialist. However, I used to be a member of the Libertarian cult.
Oh, that is immediately starting off harsh. Um, and our guest, well, I mean, Sophia is also a guest, but the main guest that we asked here, Aria, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me on. And I am part of the current libertarian cult, but I don't consider it a cult. I mean, if we want to talk about cults, standing up and honoring judges and their robes and the state and pledging allegiance to flags and getting educated by the school system, that's cult behavior. Right.
It was a joke, Aria.
I know. I'm just saying it's not a cult. The state's a cult.
It's okay. The snark has already started. So,
if just because I didn't say anything about my political leanings, just in case you were curious, on the case that went to the Supreme Court about putting kids who would not pledge into, sending them out in the hallway. My dead name's on there, so I was part of that case. So
very cool. So you were against the kids being punished for not standing up with the whole ritual they have?
Yeah, I've long referred to myself as a libertarian socialist.
Okay.
Okay, so let's get started. I know you guys have hinted at it a little bit, but let's give a brief overview. Each of you can give a brief overview of your thoughts on libertarianism. I mean, I can start with myself if you want.
Good. Yes.
Please. Oftentimes libertarianism relies too much on capitalism for me. I think some of the core values are good. Some of the core values I tend to disagree with. I know that makes me come off as super centrist with that attitude, but I think in general, I am somewhere left of center, unsure of how best to describe myself. And I'm not necessarily the most sure on what to say. I know I cared more about libertarianism specifically in high school. But yeah, what's everyone else's thoughts about libertarianism? Just in terms of brief overviews.
I could be flippant and say, I could compare libertarianism to Harry Enfield's Kevin and Perry, but the libertarians do make some good points about the war on drugs, about the military-industrial complex. However, I do feel that libertarianism really does boil down to social Darwinism sometimes, with this blind faith in the free market. That's talking about what Americans know as libertarianism. As for libertarian socialism, that's a different subject. That's about civic democracy, about worker co-ops, etc., etc. So it really it depends on what strain of libertarianism. I think, Aria, you're an anarcho-capitalist, aren't you?
I call myself one, yes, but strictly speaking, I'm simply an anarchist. I happen to be of the mind that the free market is the best way to solve most problems, but if it doesn't solve the problems that need to be solved, then that's not up to me. It's not up to me to say what is the best economic model for people to use, right? People can determine that for themselves, and in the long run, the best economic model will win out. I am a libertarian, but what people need to understand is that libertarianism, a libertarian can mean two different things. It can mean a member of the Libertarian Party, and that entire labeled political system apparatus, or it can mean someone who abides by the non-aggression principle, which is simply the idea that it's wrong to initiate aggression against people. That's what I am. Now, all of these ideas about the war on drugs and things like that, they all stem from this idea that it's wrong to initiate aggression against people. And that's what the state does when it, kidnaps people and throws them in prison against their will, or shoots them, or steals from them, or whatever, in order to enforce its asinine policies, like, their prohibition. So it's not necessarily a set of positions that, hey, we're against the drug war, we're against this, we're for that. It's simply the belief that it's wrong to hit people. And I think that's something that everyone can get on board with, or that's something that everyone should be able to get on board with. The problem is that, libertarians are terrible marketers. They're terrible salespeople. They're idiotic, mouth-breathing idiots who exist to argue with other idiotic, mouth-breathing idiots.
That's kind of ironic, because I hear that about the radical left as well.
Really?
Yeah.
They're always bickering amongst themselves.
Yeah, I'm in a libertarian activist center here in the United States, which is Keene, New Hampshire, and we have tons of libertarians, and we have tons of libertarian chat rooms that are just filled with us. And every single one of them, every single day, erupts into a long 200 comment argument between one or more people. And I say one because sometimes, yes, the same person will just sit in there spamming, arguing with themselves for an hour or two. So all of these chat rooms, I leave permanently muted. That's a libertarian. And those are the people out there trying to convince people of the ideas of liberty. How can you fail to sell people on this basic idea that it's wrong to initiate aggression? That's easy to sell, but not if you're an idiot who exists solely to argue with other idiots.
Well, to a lot of us, at least, our first encounter with libertarianism per se, and I'm not saying this is libertarianism as is of course Ayn Rand, and there were those of us who got sucked into it, and then took a radical left departure after getting through the back couple of chapters of Atlas Shrugged.
That's well and good. Perfict. You haven't described your views on libertarianism yet, and I'm curious. Perfect. You're here, right?
Yeah,
Perfect.
I think it's yes, I'm here. It has certain problems with it, in as much as it's always being applied pure. That people want to talk about it in a pure sense,
yeah.
And most of these programs are capitalism is poison applied purely, and so is libertarianism, and both of them need to be tempered with something else. Socialism, for instance, is a popular thing to temper them with, to make them work, because in the pure form they're terrible.
Oh, we don't know that. We've never had either of these in a pure form.
Somalia.
Well, we have neoliberal.
Somalia is overrun with warlords who absolutely do not abide by the ethics of the non-aggression principle.
No.
I mean, they're criminal gangs running their governments. The fact that it's engaged in a civil war between 50 to 100 different warlords doesn't really make it libertarianism. It makes it a civil war. But we like pointing to the United States in 1866 and saying, look, it's a libertarian paradise because the United States is fighting the Confederate States. It's no such thing. It's just a civil war. It's just warlords fighting each other.
I'm not going to go to the Civil War because I was going to at some point, and I said, that's just mean.
Well, Mario.
No, in general, what happens is because there is such a thing as natural hierarchies, which a lot of my anarchist and socialist friends do not believe, but you can see it in any place,
What do you mean by natural hierarchies?
people who will be the leaders because that's kind of what they do. They're good at it, or they're strong, or they're whatever.
Yeah, you're always going to get leaders and sheeple.
But there's an enormous difference between a leader and and a ruler, right?
Yeah,
that's what a lot of people don't grasp.
But can
I learned I learned something in working in a prison, which I was a teacher. Just so you don't think I was a guard, as a teacher, I wanted these people to get educations and get the fuck out of there. The One of the first things that was told to me, I've really taken to heart, which is that the prisons are entirely dependent on the consent of the prisoners, because there is no way, if everybody went to break out, that anything could be done. But everybody's not going to go, because you have your self-interest to, I don't want to be the one shot. This actually applies to a lot of situations.
Not wanting to be the one shot doesn't mean you consent to it. I mean,
no, I mean, but I'm saying,
hold on. If you have a murderer staying in a room with 50 women, they say, "Hey, one of you women is going to get raped." The first woman, that doesn't mean they consent to it by not escaping because he has a gun on them. It's still rape. It's still against their will.
No, I may be explaining this wrong. It's basically, if everybody goes, nobody will know if anybody gets shot. The actual likelihood is in low and medium, they probably won't, because the guards don't carry guns. So, and they're all right on railroad tracks. So what the fuck?
Can I just point out that we've found out how poisonous neoliberal capitalism is with this fucking, COVID pandemic. The middle class wankers strip the supermarket shelves bare, and those less fortunate were left with fuck all. Now, how's that right? I don't think that's right. Just because you're the strongest does not mean that you should have it all.
I don't have a solution. As far as I'm aware, the middle class really only bought out toilet paper. I'm not aware of anything else. At least here in the United States, things are probably just different elsewhere throughout the world. But here in the United States, the only port in stock were toilet paper, paper towels, and hand sanitizer.
Here in New York State, a lot of things went fucking fluey.
I will say also masks were stockpiled by people, which wasn't necessary.
Masks, toilet paper, hand sanitizer, none of it's going to do anything to help people against COVID-19.
Well, it wasn't
masks.
Just that. It was canned food, dried pasta, roll.
That depends on the.
I mean, grains don't keep, so the people who went out and bought 50 years worth of spaghetti, they've already
there was
their own assets.
Basically the refuge collectors basically said that about 2 weeks after all the panic buying, that a whole load of food was dumped in wheelie bins, which was basically wasted.
Yeah.
And there are now problems with supplying, supermarkets.
There are not problems with supplying. The problem is because companies like Monsanto and Tyson, they have farmers by the balls. I've talked with a number of these farmers because New Hampshire has a lot of.
That is true. That is true, actually.
And I mean, they have
both of these things are true.
They have cattle, they have pigs. They want to slaughter them and, do whatever it is that they do, get them processed, whatever. But Monsanto, they have these anti-competitive agreements within their contracts with Monsanto and Tyson and other of these mega corporations that shouldn't exist and wouldn't exist without the state being there to force us to use them. So farmers would be able to just sell these things directly to the processing plants, but they can't because Monsanto will sue the hell out of them. And Monsanto can sue the hell out of anybody. They've done it before and they'll do it again.
Well,
you get one soybean of theirs on your property that has their special little trademark gene, patented gene rather, they'll sue you.
Yeah, I heard a story about there was a farmer who, unbeknownst to him, was growing some Monsanto crop.
Probably soybeans.
basically
Yeah.
seeds from another farm had basically blown into his farm.
Yeah.
And that particular strain had started growing on his property, and Monsanto sued him.
Yeah, and they won because the American government doesn't give a shit about people. They're there to get elected and to make themselves rich, like all politicians throughout the world.
Well, they won in Canada first.
Monsanto pays the American
Yes.
government very heavily for all of these little favors.
I've just got a couple things to ask you, Aria. First of all, talking about masks, I know that you're refusing to wear one, aren't you?
I am. I
What
went
are
to
you-
a gathering today with like 65, 70 people. A lot of people shook my hand. I even hugged a few people. It was great. All of them strangers, never met them
Here's
before.
mine.
I know this is going to sound confrontational.
It's fine.
But what about the freedom not to infect others?
The people who are worried about me infecting them, I'm not going to approach them. I'm not going, if they're wearing a mask, I'm going to keep my distance from them because I'm not an asshole. I'm not going to go knocking on their door, coughing in their faces. I'm not going to break into their homes. If they don't want to be at risk by human beings and the rest of society, then they should stay at home, and that's fine.
Well,
I'm going to say something that
Hold
is
on, hold on,
going
hold on.
to be a little bit confrontational,
Hold
which
on,
is
hold
I
on.
think not wearing a mask is an act of aggression.
Well, I was going to say,
Is it an act of aggression if you have the flu and you don't wear a mask?
Yes.
Well, see, I would actually agree with you on that. And I would agree with you that if I was infected with COVID-19 and I was passing it along knowingly to other people, then certainly that would qualify as an act of aggression.
Harry, you say that people are assholes if they're coughing at people. But Ian put a video up on Free Keen where basically some people objected to the police trying to get them to social distance.
Mhm.
We started making comparisons to the Holocaust, which I found offensive because I'm Jewish, and then started coughing at them. That's being an arsehole as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I mean, the cops were being typical authoritarian pigs. They could have been worse. That's true. And I'm not exactly a fan of the way the random family, I don't know them. I've never spoken with them. I'm not a fan of the way they handled it either. I don't think that going on the verbal attack and calling people Nazis and getting offended and upset and making flippant comparisons to the Holocaust is doing anyone any favors. But when you're in an encounter like that and you have people with guns who are more than willing historically to shoot you to enforce any type of law, even driving without a seatbelt, they'll shoot you over that. Then I understand people aren't taking the time to carefully word out exactly what they mean.
The people who were confronting them had guns too, so just saying. Sorry,
Okay.
We've interrupted Perfict
Yeah.
twice, so
That the point of wearing a mask is so that you don't become part of a new vector. And
Yeah.
when you walk along the street, you're breathing out, and you breathe out and you make a cloud of vapor, which is actually able to support COVID-19, not normally supporting a flu virus. Viruses are fragile, but COVID-19 is enormously robust and survives ridiculously long times on surfaces and has a
Actually,
hang
that was
time in
just
the air.
disproven by I think it was the CDC. So
Well, the
no,
test by the
surfaces were disproven by the CBC, not the other.
and so the thing is that
I mean, that's the issue here is that, they were saying for months that, we can live up to 14 days on surfaces. And then the CDC, which is the government, I don't trust the government at all. But now they're coming out and saying, oh, by the way, yeah, we were wrong about that. I mean, are they going to be wrong about how long it can live in a vapor cloud next? It seems like you're putting a lot of trust in people who have been wrong over and over and over about this thing.
Yes, but I'd point out that libertarians say that climatologists are wrong.
Some people who are libertarians say that, and some people who are libertarians think that climatologists are right.
Get off into particulars. I don't know of anybody who was saying 14 days. Perhaps there was somebody. But they were talking about 96 hours on hard hard surfaces, I don't know that that's been withdrawn. But if they say that what our best studies
yes.
show is this, even if later those best studies turn out to be wrong and they say, we've now done more intense studies and we found this information, that doesn't mean that they were giving you wrong information. That was telling you the best information available to pilot into the unknown future.
But there is no information about COVID-19.
Well,
And,
no,
they've
there
got
is
the best
information about
information that they've
COVID-19.
developed.
Yes, I was saying that's a bit hyperbolic, but the information that we have is extremely limited, and almost everything we've been told about it so far has been retracted and shown to be false.
Well,
So you're
I don't
wait.
know about any of that. Almost everything we've been told about it, I really don't think that that sounds hyperbolic to me. It sounds like a string of hyperbolic statements. That the point is that when you are dealing with it and people are saying we're using the best information, you can say, I don't trust that information, but you're welcome to do that. But other people are trusting that information, and you're saying that it's all right for you to risk their life.
Other people
not
are
risking anyone's life.
other people are trusting
you are.
trusting you.
if
By
they
not,
if they believe
the mask isn't
government
going to
about all
protect
of
you
this,
from breathing
they
in.
can stay the hell at home.
The mask is not protecting you from breathing in. It's protecting
I
you from
understand
them
that.
from your breathing out.
I understand that.
Okay. Well,
And
then,
if they're concerned about getting infected with something, they should stay the fuck at home.
right. But it isn't a matter of they are concerned with.
Why should I wear a mask?
You're not following it through.
Be
You
considerate.
walk along. You walk along, and you breathe in. Somebody else was breathing out, and you breathe it in, and now you're infected, and you
Yeah,
become a new.
that's the risk
and you,
I take.
and you become a new cloud that walks along, breathing out, and you infect somebody else, and they then go, and they touch a door, and they give it to somebody else who comes in and catches it, and then they go home and they give it to somebody who did stay at home. They did all that they could, but they are now immunocompromised and they're dead. And you were part of the chain. You decided to risk their life.
No, I didn't. The person who lives with them, who went out in public, risked their life.
They have to. They can't not be a member of society anymore. That just isn't
How can they not be?
possible.
There's
'Cause they
Amazon, there's
need
DoorDash,
to
there's
eat.
Walmart deliveries, there's everything.
Well-
Everything you could possibly need can get delivered directly to your doorstep.
You know,
without
we're-
any
we're-
interaction
do-
with other human beings.
Some of us are
Calm-
poor.
Some people need to actually earn money, for instance, and all kinds of things that people need to venture out of their houses. It isn't a matter of they could just. There's no could just.
No, there is.
The
I mean,
thing
there
is-
absolutely is.
wait,
They can
thing
earn
is
money
that-
without interacting with other
wait,
people. I know that because
you're-
I made $1,500 in one day last week without interacting with a single other human being in person.
just because there is some possibility that you can do it doesn't mean that everybody can.
Why
And
not?
The other thing is,
No, you can't just make an assert.
the
an
other
assertion
thing
like
is,
that. Why
the other
can't they
thing
do it?
is,
uh,
the
Hold
other
on,
thing
hold
is,
on.
that is, I would say,
hold,
is a
hold,
method
hold on,
is-
hold on.
Perfect. Believe it or not, Ari, Perfect's usually the quietest of the lot. But I think things are getting a bit
well,
tense.
little tense. But the thing is that you don't. That there's
Well-
a point where your right to go out into public isn't what's in question here. You're saying their right to appear and be a member of society is subservient to your right to avoid the inconvenience of wearing a mask. And that doesn't seem to me to be equitable. And that the point is that it is life-threatening, and it's sort of the situation of you're on a dock and they're drowning. You are obligated to throw them a life preserver if it's available.
Well,
You're not-
that comes.
You're not obligated to hang onto the rope because they might pull you in.
And
But
that's
you
where
have
you're
to
wrong.
throw the
I'm
life
not
preserver.
obligated to throw them a lifesaver.
Yeah,
Well,
that comes down
that's what
to.
our societal
not
standard
obligated
is.
Well, I mean,
That's
there
our
are
societal
different.
Literally.
There are different ethical views on when it comes to that is a whole different conversation about the ethics of do you save someone, do you the Good Samaritan type policy, do you save someone because they're at risk, or is that a moral obligation or not? That is its own separate conversation, and different people have different views on it. So
Well,
that
yeah, but we
that is going into a completely different, ultimately going
Yeah.
into a completely different conversation.
okay, but with
that-
giving that a nod and pushing it to the side, I was pointing out that that's our societal standard. At that point, it's called depraved indifference homicide. But so
Well, I mean, the
with
government.
that
doesn't
comment,
care.
we can push that to the side. That if the point is that your right to swing your fist ends where somebody else's nose begins,
Sure.
and your relative inconvenience at wearing a mask is not considered consequential to their survival.
well,
Well, hold on. Let me correct a misunderstanding here. My inconvenience is irrelevant to the discussion. Maybe I
Okay.
like wearing masks. That's completely and totally irrelevant. What's at issue here is whether or not anyone has the right to force me to wear something. And we've been down this road before, and I don't really want to make the analogy, and I'm not going to. But we've been down this fucking road before.
Well, France has already gone
Um,
down it by banning the burqa.
Right, and so have many states within the United States. Oh, by the way, many of these states within the United States have still made it illegal for people to wear face masks. So, I mean, people can't really be legal in places like Florida anyway. And it was because of burqas and, you know, the hijabs and things like that. A lot of Christian states were like, oh, no, we don't want people wearing these things in public. So they banned, you know, any sort of facial coverings.
I wanted to make a point, finish my point about climatologists. Libertarians hold on, because it's a similar argument. Libertarians consider property rights to be the holiest of the holy, right? And basically,
well, we consider not committing aggression to be the holiest of the holy.
Right, but what's yours is yours. That's typically what.
Well, because a person cannot take it from me without committing aggression.
Right. Okay. So, okay, libertarians. You do get libertarians who do believe that climate change is real.
Sure.
But many libertarians I know think it's a hoax, and essentially, but their starting point isn't the science. The starting point is, you know, they know that if to combat climate change, we're going to have to surrender some of our liberty, particularly when it comes to our property, right, and what we do with it, right, to basically combat climate change. Therefore, they look for the arguments which are going to protect their property rights. Yeah. In other words, so that they're not going to have to do any you know, they're not going to have to do anything. They're not going to have to surrender any of their liberty.
Sure. I'm not among those libertarians. I don't particularly care about property rights. I fall closer to an egoist in that regard. I mean, if somebody claims to have property, it ultimately comes down to who has the biggest gun, even in the libertarian paradise. But the reality of the situation, as far as I'm concerned, is more Nietzschean. Climate change will fix itself. Humans don't have a good track record for intentionally changing things on a global scale. Sure, we demolished the tropical rainforests in South America, but it's not like humans set out to do that. That was a byproduct of other things. Just about every time humans were like,
it's a byproduct of capitalism, actually.
Well, the people of South America weren't really given the option about whether or not they wanted to have their rainforest chopped down. So they just kind of had it forced on them, which means it wasn't capitalism. It was.
Well, it was McDonald's, you know, chopping down rainforest to graze cattle.
Right.
Was just McDonald's.
But it wasn't McDonald's.
Yeah,
it wasn't McDonald's rainforest to chop down. It belonged to the people, you know, who lived there, and they weren't given an option.
Mostly they were.
Which actually reminds me, I'll have to ask Alice, you might actually disagree with Ayn Rand on this. Ayn Rand thought it was all right for the colonists to literally steal land from the Native Americans.
No, that is detestable.
Yeah, her basic argument was that they weren't using it for anything useful.
Well, that's not her determination to make.
I agree.
Um,
Leonard Peikoff has been continuing this particular line of argument. That's usually when he gets kicked off the shows.
So, I wanted to. I've been wanting to ask a question for a while. It's not as what do you think about asymptomatic carriers who can spread COVID? What do you think about the responsibility and the attempt to? Because
I know what my answer is, but my answer isn't going to sit well with anyone else here, which is nature will handle its shit by itself.
Yeah, but nature will handle its shit by itself. It's very social Darwinist. This is what.
Let the weak die. Yes, that is my position.
And I guess
why?
I think you're, and I guess
because I care about the long-term survival of the species ultimately.
But
yeah,
that's not necessarily determined by weak and strong, or at the very least that
everything in natural selection tells us that the adaptive survive. The ones who can adapt to this new virus will survive, and the ones who cannot will die out. In the long run, the virus will wipe out humanity. I mean, let natural selection happen. It's nothing but hubris to suggest that humans can stop it anyway. Oh no, if we just wear masks and we stay at home, we can stop natural selection because we're all gods now. We're omnipotent. We're not. We're weak little amoeba swimming in a sea that is more vast than we can ever comprehend.
Okay, that is
actually, hold on. No.
Perfect.
Calm down. Okay. Calm down. Let's take things one at a time. Don't.
No. Sophia, go. No, I need to make a point about. She said
that. I think everyone feels the need to make a point.
No. This is important. Aria said that if we all sit at home, then the COVID-19 will die out. Well, do you know what happened?
I drew lamb's blood just in case.
Do you know what happened to what happened with the Spanish flu?
Well, you understand that when I said if we all just stay at home and wear masks, then we can stop natural selection. You understand that was intentionally exaggerated, right?
Yeah, all right.
I hope so. I've known at least 3 people died from it so far.
I know some as well. People die every day. I can't save the world.
Well,
I mean, and it's tragic when people we love die. I don't want to discount that at all. It sucks. It's awful.
So
it's going to happen. Everyone you know, everyone you love will die.
Okay.
Every single one of them.
Part of why your argument totally falls apart is, one, natural selection doesn't have anything to do with the fittest. It's just
it's adaptation. I've said that.
No, it's not adaptation.
It is absolutely adaptation.
Okay, no, adaptation is an entirely separate thing. This is just those who survive do survive. That's basically the principle involved here.
That sounds very theologian of you.
Right. And
that's factually incorrect.
Wait.
Well, I didn't spend my time interrupting you.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Calm down. Perfect. Continue.
Shall we change the subject?
Wait. Perfect. Continue.
Okay, I've totally lost my train of thought on that.
I apologize.
The difference between
being interrupted incessantly.
Yeah, we need to stop interrupting. I know clearly some of you have had have emotions tied with this, so it's understandable for you to want to blurt everything out immediately. That being said, we are all here to talk, and to do so, we need to not constantly interrupt each other. So, perfect. You had something to say.
We see the trait in particularly social hunters that you support individuals. It's a strategy for survival of your group, that you support individuals who are hurt, lame, halt, sometimes permanently injured. you still have invested resources into that individual, and you want to see at least some return on your investment still. So you aid them. That is a form of thwarting natural selection. And mankind has long been thwarting natural selection. We do it all the time. That's what we've built our empire on. Why should we abandon this strategy now?
Well, how's that working out? We have a planet on the brink of destruction globally. We have war. We have President Donald Trump. We have coronavirus. How's that thwarting natural selection working out? We have hurricanes. We have earthquakes. We have
so far, do you see another species that you would consider to be more dominant or in control? So far, it's what we've built our empire on, and you're saying we should abandon it.
Might I
ills might be going on. Nonetheless, that is the case.
Might I? There may be another species that I could make an argument has done better at survival, and that's cockroaches. Although that isn't a very interesting method of survival, personally. Crocodiles have done an alright job as well in terms of long-term survival. Although with a lot of these things, it's not. Strength obviously has a lot of stuff tied into it and what people consider to be strong, and people can after the fact mention things because people can be strong in one instance and weak in another. You can be strong and relatively unintelligent. You can be physically strong and relatively unintelligent, which is beneficial.
Weak as fuck and smarter than everybody.
I disagree about the smarter than everybody. But that's so is strength the question is because I am curious, and just to try to hopefully clarify things so we can have a more reasonable conversation. I don't really want a debate. I'm sorry, things have gotten more confrontational than I originally thought. Hopefully we're not putting too bad of a time. So
I think everybody's still smiling.
So
yeah, I feature in the Great British Book of Smiles.
So
mine are fake, so I don't care. I can just take them out and have them smile for me.
Do you consider, so in terms of what it means to be strong versus what it means to be weak, is it solely about who survives and who doesn't, or is there any other factor that is involved in terms of what you consider strong and what you consider weak?
I'm actually writing a book about that subject, not to plug it because it's going to be years before I finish it. But this is one of the parts where I diverge from Friedrich Nietzsche, who argued that, strength largely is a physical aspect. I would disagree. I think adaptation is probably the most important thing. All we can really do as a species in this universe, Cap, is gauge what species survive and what don't, and try to identify the characteristics that allowed those species to survive and which ones didn't. Like the dodo, they didn't survive. Why not? We should identify that so that we don't repeat the mistakes of the dodo. And maybe one day there will be some species that looks back and goes, well, humanity didn't survive. Why not? And they will evaluate that. I don't know.
The dodos didn't survive because humans are assholes.
Depends on
they
the
didn't
human.
survive because they were yummy.
Sure, but plenty of other species. That's just the most obvious extinct species that comes to mind when I think about extinct species, right?
Well, at least mankind can't be blamed for the extinction of the dinosaurs.
That's true.
That's true.
Unless you believe that they're victims of original sin, but which I do not. Some of this is hitting really close to home because 4 of the 5 people in my house survived this thing,
Including you,
including me. Our pesky rescue trans didn't get it at all. But she also had to be under quarantine because she was definitely a carrier. So,
Shall we change the subject onto trans stuff?
please.
I would prefer that. I mean, I do a talk radio show, right? And it's largely news based. What's in the news is what we talk about. And for like the last 2.5 months, it's just been fucking COVID. I'm so sick of discussing.
Oh no, we have to talk about COVID for another
COVID
2 hours.
Affected the trans community.
Actually, it's affected us very badly, but that's
Wait.
almost irrelevant.
Oh, you mean in terms of delays?
Well, yeah, I mean, because Mount Sinai is a little busy right now. I'm not going in August.
Yeah, I mean there have been delays by that, but when it comes to yeah, let us you went.
Well, I was gonna say, look, you know, we obviously disagree strongly.
Oh yeah,
with your politics, Aria, but you are trans. You have gender dysphoria. We know what it's like to have gender dysphoria. Yes, it's different for every person, but there are similarities. So, you know, and trans solidarity does go a long way with me. You know, no matter. I mean, I know that you come over quite fierce, and don't get me wrong, I actually think that's a good thing, believe it or not. But I do know that you probably are the kind of person who, if someone came to you and said, you know, I've got a child who's got possible gender identity issues, you would probably help them as much as you could.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because you're trans and you know what that's like.
Well, I mean, not necessarily. That's not necessarily why. If they came up to me and said, you know, my child has liver disease and needs to go to the hospital. I don't have liver disease, but I would still do what I could to help their child because I'm not a sociopath. So for me, it's not because I know what gender identity is like. It's because I care about other human beings.
I mean, funny enough, some of my liberal friends said I didn't go hard enough on you in the original interview. There was one thing I was going to ask you about. I did hear, and I don't know if it's true, but is it true you were married at one point?
I was married at one point, yes. To a cis woman.
Everybody raise their hands.
No,
what?
I suppose I'm the only other one.
I'm engaged. But...
No, I meant I was married pre-transition.
I was not.
I have 2 children.
And Perfict never transitioned, given that he's cis. So,
as far as we know.
Oh God.
Maybe Aria could tell us her thoughts on Caitlyn Jenner, because I actually thought that was perfect. She got it bang on.
When I fuck Caitlyn Jenner. Basically, Caitlyn Jenner wants to be the Rosa Parks of the trans movement, except she doesn't want to actually get her hands dirty. The thing that sticks out in my mind about Caitlyn Jenner was when the whole trans restroom thing was going on here in the United States, and North Carolina had just made it a law that people could only use the bathroom on their birth certificate or whatever. I don't remember the details of the law, but Donald Trump came out and said, well, I don't care. Anyone who visits my properties can use whatever bathroom they want. And for some reason, Caitlyn Jenner live streams herself going to one of Trump's properties in Las Vegas, fucking Nevada, which is already pretty fucking tolerant of weird people. Not to say that trans people are weird, but Caitlyn Jenner is definitely a little weird, and trans people are a bit unusual, but they're not going to catch anyone's radar in Las Vegas because they're used to seeing shit that's out of the ordinary of the average person. So she goes to Trump's tower in Las Vegas, and she uses the women's restroom, and she posts all over the internet about it like she's some sort of fucking hero for trans people. If she wanted to be a fucking hero for trans people, she would have gone to North Carolina to one of those bathrooms where it was illegal and gotten herself arrested. You don't get to be Rosa Parks fighting for the right for people to sit wherever they want on the bus if you're only going to use the bus where you know the bus driver will let you sit wherever you want. And that's exactly what Caitlyn Jenner did. Oh, look at me, I'm fighting for trans rights. You stupid fucking bitch, you're not. You're using trans people for a social media presence.
I do have a question, which is, how old are you?
I'm not answering that.
Okay.
It was a general ballpark because I'm 55. What Caitlyn Jenner did in these? See, I still remember what Caitlyn Jenner did for trans people in the 70s and how much backlash there was against her and how she hid for a number of years because of it. It's.
I remember.
I give her a lot of pass, pun unintentional, and for a lot of things. I mean, I know she's a rich dipshit at times. And
it could be intentional if you want it to.
Yeah, I mean, she's a rich dipshit at times, and rich people are like that sometimes, and fine. But what she did, especially during. I'm trying to find, which is why my head keeps bobbing out of frame. I'm trying to find. I have a great picture of Caitlyn, then under dead name, obviously, and Renee Richards back in the 70s, and how she was.
I'm there's no good way to handle this. I've discussions with people. When I look back to my childhood, do I say the little boy? Because I was definitely identifying as a boy then. Well, I mean, it's way more complex than that. And all of you know that, but
yeah,
socially, I was a boy. So do I refer to myself as he in the past tense? I mean, I don't take any particular offense, and I don't think anyone should to refer to 1970s Jenner character as him.
Yeah, well, one of the things.
Well,
I'm gonna just go with Jenner. Renee Richards was
a tennis player.
Was a tennis player and a hero of mine, but she kept not being allowed in places, even though she was famous and all of that. And Jenner kept accompanying her so that she would be allowed in, which would break the barrier. It was one of those things where they used their clout to do something for the trans community, and did that for other trans people, not just Renee Richards is obviously the obvious example. I'm looking for a picture I have of the two of them together at Studio 54.
I remember Caitlyn Jenner when she was in Chips.
Well, that's true, but of course she also was in Can't Stop the Music. So,
she wasn't she? Oh God.
I don't know about this. This is old people talk.
This is old people talk. It's one of the gayest movies ever made. It tried to tone down the gay as much as possible, but
it's one of the worst films ever made. I think.
It's atrocious.
I think it's got Steve Guttenberg in, which
Steve Guttenberg and of course the Village People.
Yeah, and we know what happened to Steve Guttenberg. Police Academy. Shit.
The Day After, a beautiful movie. So.
Yes.
If you don't make me defend Steve Guttenberg, I will sit here and do it.
So,
actually, that's a question for Aria. Where do you stand on the whole trans athlete stuff?
Oh no, this is going to become another fight, isn't it?
No, it's not.
No,
it certainly isn't. I don't stand anywhere on it. I don't know how to begin to handle an issue that is that complicated. I mean, the reality of it is that testosterone is a performance enhancing drug.
Yeah.
So that's all I know. Should trans women be denied the right to compete or the ability to compete against other women? I don't know. Should they be quarantined off to compete with other trans athletes? I don't know. I don't have any of the answers to those questions.
Okay.
So
well, what do you think of my answer to that complex problem, which is that the best thing is that we should be trying to talk to things like the Olympic Committee and make sure that they understand that the populace would like them to try and seek a solution that allows trans athletes to participate wherever they're allowed. They can work it however they can work it. That is the objective.
That is the rule as of now. The only person who is qualified, at least for one of the Olympic teams, is hold your hats, people. A trans man. We're always getting the. I know trans women are always getting the shit, but everybody ignores trans men because reasons which I could discuss at length.
Who was a trans man who was a cage fighter, and he was made to go and fight other women?
Well, I know there was a trans woman who was an MMA fighter.
But she wasn't even like that good.
As Christy rightly pointed out, no, she wasn't. But as Christy rightly pointed out, no one gives a shit about trans men. It's always trans women who are taking the heat on these things.
Well, that's because of TERFs.
I don't know if it's just TERFs. You know, it's a very strong tendency here in the United States as well, where people on the right generally are like, no, obviously this man should not wrestle against other women, or should not wrestle against women, however they phrase it.
So first off, before I forget, we are in the point for Collins, if anyone wants to make a call-in at this point. The other thing I want to say is I think a lot of this has to do with gender essentialism and the idea that men are always strong, women are always weak, and like these things can't be changed at all. And it's not really about that. Sports has always been about competition and what can allow a competition, and nothing that's been done based off the Olympic rules affects competition. And the only example I can think of that could possibly affect competition didn't follow the Olympic rules. It was someone on HRT for 9 months instead of a year, and they hadn't quite reached the Olympic threshold. The weightlifter chick, she was only on HRT for 9 months when she had that particular weightlifting thing, but she also lost a lot of strength.
You do lose muscle tone with
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I'm nowhere near as strong. I mean, okay, I'm older as well.
Okay.
Before HRT, I went around the house and loosened all the jar lids.
Okay.
That's a good joke. Come on, give it to me.
No. By the way,
we do have a caller.
Right.
So.
Is that good? Are you sending him through me?
No, I shouldn't.
I was gonna say,
send him through me. I'm fine.
One thing I will defend Aria about.
Wait, what's the best way to send?
Yeah, but do we?
I'm trying to not show the information for the password.
One thing I was going to say. One thing I'd defend Aria about is the fact that she uses the term she-male. I had a journalist yesterday I said to her I was going to speak to Aria again, and she went, "Oh Christ, the anarchist she-male," and I went, "Yeah," and she went, "I hate that term," and I said, "Look, people should have the freedom to identify as however they want to damn well identify." Yeah. And also, I'd point out that in the Far East, she-male was a perfectly culturally accepted term.
Yeah, I don't care one way or the other about the terminology. I really don't, and I'm told I should, but I don't.
Yeah, well, Aria can tell you she's had shit for it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
And ultimately,
I call I say of myself, I'm a chick with a dick and a brick. You know.
um, yeah. So I sent the link.
Yeah, you can send the link directly. I can actually change the password mid.
I kind of think that a lot of some trans people have completely lost their sense of humor, because there used to be this joke over here about if you went to like an LGBTQ or a trans event in the middle of a field, right? You could always spot the transsexuals from the transvestites. Transsexuals will be wearing leather jackets and DMs. The transvestites, however, will still be wearing miniskirts and 8-inch heels, no matter how muddy it was.
Well, let me the founder of Fluid Voice is calling in, so let me let Eliani in. Eliani Clark founded this whole thing, and we're just treading on the toes of history here. Al, can you hear us? Okay.
It's saying connecting.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Can you guys
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey,
Hello, everyone. How are
Hi.
you guys doing today?
All right.
We're doing all right. We're
I like being on the show. It's better than being in my house.
I can only imagine. Pleasure to meet you guys. How you guys doing this evening? So,
relatively well. I didn't get the best sleep. I mentioned that earlier. You know, things but which there was a weird part where I woke up and worried about a guest not responding back. It was a strange midnight sort of venture.
gotcha. I also wanted to say, Sophia and Aria, I watched your guys' YouTube video, and I enjoyed your discussion. So I appreciate that. I hope you guys make more content like that. That was a good discussion between you two.
Thank you.
I enjoyed
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, and like it's important to be able to talk to people that you disagree with on things, even if it's not like unless it's someone like someone who's a
white.
neo-Nazi who well, I mean, yeah,
I did that with Chris
you're-
Cantwell, and he made him storm out of the studio. I mean,
Oh, no,
I mean-
I'll never forget that. That was
I
fun.
mean, yes, but that is less the content that I want to do, and admittedly, is a
That's
lot
fair.
tougher content. And I think people, I think to some degree, when it comes to conversation, when it comes to things people try to get done, people should try to do the good that they can do.
I will admit to being nervous about this all week. So
Yeah, you're way more like I feel like there was a lot more nervousness than for I wasn't really worried about this. I was worried about weird random other stuff.
And speaking of weird and random other stuff, Eliani was still going.
Yeah, you called in, so what do you want to say?
I was watching your discussion, and I don't want to get into too much of the topic, but so I mentioned this, and I was typing this out during while watching the first hour on your disc on Twitch, Alex. So I want to address the comment about mass, and I'm not going to focus on one specific individual. But when it comes to mass, the very concept of basic 101 virology is the reason why we wear masks, for example, in the medical field. If you wear a mask, it's not to prevent yourself from getting sick as well. It's also to prevent yourself from passing on what you may have intrinsically to yourself. So, for example, if you remember the situation that happened in Liberia with the Ebola virus, the Ebola virus could not be catched through air-to-air contact, but it could be spread through either, drinking the water, exposure to blood, what have you. They still wore masks. They didn't have to wear masks in a nature because of touching surfaces. They wore masks because they knew that if they had sicknesses or illnesses that they had caught in the outside, and they went into an environment where you had a bunch of Ebola patients, not only are these individuals already fighting Ebola, but if they introduce the flu or any other additional sickness into the environment that these patients were facing with already bombardment with Ebola, then it would have made their job way much harder and more than likely caused the deaths of those suffering from Ebola already because of the viral load. So I guess anybody have any?
Yeah. I mean, one of the reasons I wear a mask is to stop me touching my mouth or my nose.
Well, there's that.
I mean, I wear a pair of washing up gloves as well, just to be extra sure.
Well, I mean,
I will say this on the subject of masks, and this is a topic that is absolutely exhausting me. So much so
Yeah.
that I wanted to just turn off my headset during all of that. But
I'm sorry. Didn't mean to exhaust you.
I was forced to live as a male for 20 years of my life. I was forced to wear a mask as a male, and fuck anyone who thinks they have the right to force me to wear one again.
That's a good analogy.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do get it. I mean, I'm not.
Yeah, I kind of think.
So I am curious about that line of reasoning. So you're saying that I just recently started doing my transition around 3 months ago, but I have a similar experience to what you're advocating for, and I understand the sentiments. But let me understand the reasoning here, your equivocation here. You're saying that because you of a mask of identity, it's equivalent to wearing a mask in a physical form to prevent other communicable diseases being spread among the masses. You're sincerely going to equate the two?
What I'm seriously equating is the idea that I should cover up who I am, who I present myself as, for other people's benefit. Yes.
But again, you're comparing, you're masking your intrinsic identity.
I'm comparing exactly what I said.
But I'm going to agree with Aria. I think we've exhausted this.
Okay, we can move on.
Yeah. Sorry, I just kind of think,
Yeah.
Like at some point, when it comes to conversations, like
just agree to disagree. Yeah?
there yes, and there is yes. There is an importance to agreeing to disagree to actually maintain a conversation, and I think we have made it clear that we disagree with you, Aria, but like that doesn't. At some point, it's just us hammering the same nail over and over. And
I kind of don't want to do that.
The British government, right, haven't made it compulsory to wear a mask, but what they've said strongly advised that people do. Now, the reason they've done that, the reason they've not made it compulsory, is because if they did, there'd be a run on surgical masks, which would leave shortages for the NHS. Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But whether people want me to cover up my face to protect them from COVID, or whether it's the government that wants me to cover up my face to protect them from COVID, or whether people want me to cover up my face to protect them from the fact I'm trans, it's all the same to me.
But
people want me to cover up.
Do you think it's okay? So are you okay with Walmart or I don't know, Whole Foods or whatever making it compulsory to wear a mask in their store?
I'm absolutely okay. I would just find somewhere that doesn't make it compulsory, because I'm not going to wear one. But I mean, that's their business. They can do that if they want. And it's not like I'm boycotting them or anything like that. I don't want to follow the policy, so I'm not going to be a dick and try to go in there and make a scene. I'm just going to go somewhere else.
And I guess you would think that private property owners should be allowed to say who goes into their bathrooms and which bathroom they go into.
Yes.
Yeah, thought that would be the your position.
Well, we all have to take different positions depending on that, don't we?
Oh yeah, Christy, you wanted to ask her about the case before the Supreme Court?
Oh yes. The person being fired for being trans in the workplace, the one that's going into the Supreme Court now. Unfortunately, she just died. But the case goes forward, much like Obergefell was went forward after Obergefell died. Um, the um, the question of employment at will is always one of the libertarian sticking points for me. For not for that in particular, but a whole range of things like when anybody finds out I'm Hispanic at a job site, that immediately puts me at a lower rung. That kind of thing is more my.
And she is. She speaks Spanish.
Oh, vaguely. Spanish is my first language. I don't actually speak it very well. I want to. Can I need to do one thing. I'm going to screen share for about 20 seconds, but this is because
Okay,
I've
be
been
safe
looking for
about screen sharing. Don't show us inappropriate content on your.
No, I'm yeah.
I have a hotkey in place just in case, like it's inappropriate.
No, this is the picture I was looking for. This is the picture I was looking for earlier.
I'm just.
All right.
That was a bad day that day, but I'm at the joking point.
Or if you can actually see it, there we go. There's Jenner and Renee Richards, which was at the 10th annual Women's Sports Awards. I had no idea where that picture was from. I just, when I found it, that's what it said.
Was that the 90s? You sure that wasn't the 1980s? They're sporting a mullet.
Oh, Jenner always sported a mullet. No, it's either 1979 or 1980.
Was Jenner ahead of her time?
Yes, that's what I keep saying.
With mullets, just
with mullets, yeah, that too. For fuck's sake, yeah. Everybody wanted to be Bruce Jenner, including me, and for reasons that other than other kids, I think. I always thought that Bruce Jenner was gay. So
there goes the not smoking on the screen.
I've been sending you messages and you haven't been looking at them.
Yeah, when it comes to an individual like Caitlyn Jenner has, to me, is what you could easily say. You can mark this individual as a mixed bag in regards to the positions. And I think that's probably the fairest position to have when you address any topic regarding this issue. She has some points that are incredibly problematic. You also have some points in where she, as you mentioned, Christy, was ahead of the time. So, you have to give the nuance and the context of the actual individual. That's all I can say about them.
I usually do, and I kind of, the disappearing for many years was, I'm sure, much due to the backlash, and she had the advantage that she could disappear.
And I think that by the way, that's kind of true of a lot of people. I think it's not good to just latch on too much to someone specific or whatnot and just follow whatever views or view them as some like all good, always correct being.
No, fuck no.
Yeah. I obviously there are points we agree with. There are points we disagree with each other.
I still think Biden was a dick for voting against Doma, but
Oh no, not.
I think Doma was, and don't start me on Doma because that's you won't like where I go.
I have to ask Aria. She is our guest, and we
I know.
Aria, did you support Ron Paul?
That's a tricky question. Ron Paul brought me to the ideas of liberty. I mean, it actually began with the documentary Zeitgeist, which at the time I was too young to know that a lot of it was exaggerated, to say the least. But it did introduce me to Ron Paul, who introduced me to like Hayek and Mises. and these other Austrian economists who I rather liked what they had to say. I did support Ron Paul in 2012. I didn't vote for him, I don't think. And even if I did, it didn't matter because I lived in a state where he wasn't a candidate and they discard write-in votes. So it wouldn't have mattered who I voted for, even if I did vote for him. But he has a really bad habit of letting people say very fucked up shit under his name. And
it's the survival report.
at some point, you have to say, okay, well, look, you're either an idiot who keeps allowing this to happen, or you actually endorse these things that are being said. So do I support him now? No. But he was the one who brought me to the ideas of liberty.
Yeah, I mean, I supported him. I did support him back in 2007, 2008. I mean, you know, I was, believe it or not,
I was too young to vote then.
Well, you can ask Mark. I was
we know now.
I was actually.
Yeah, you're the youngest.
That's all you've got now.
You're the youngest person here. That's all we know.
All you have is the ballpark.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I know, but I was capable of voting in 2007, so therefore, you're younger than me, and I was the youngest person before, so therefore I know you're the youngest person in this room right now.
I know how.
And now we can dismiss you out of ageism.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to get my ballpark removed.
I already know how old. I already know how old Aria is.
Don't say.
Don't say. It's not fair if she doesn't want to say it.
Like,
it's up to her.
Here's the thing: we care about consent, and
as I was trying. Sorry, I was talking about Ron Paul.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, Aria, I was actually a hardcore libertarian, and I did support him. But then all the stuff about anti-Semitism started leaking, and I am Jewish, and I'm more sensitive than most to that sort of stuff. I know that you also, I mean, I did as well, and partly Alex Jones.
Yeah.
We'll say it correctly.
Alex Jones.
Thank you.
Alex Jones has a few good documentaries, but his work has the same issue that the documentary zeitgeist has, which is that a lot of it is exaggerated, a lot of it is just outright fabricated.
Yeah.
Like the only thing I can think that Jones has done that was actually worth watching was the Obama deception, and even that is largely fabricated. Alex Jones, in and of itself, I mean, he's a nutcase. He's a complete and total fucking nutcase. Have you seen the video of him in like 1999 or whatever during the Y2K thing, doing his live stream where he was claiming that Russians were invading the United States and that he was witnessing it?
Still,
yes.
Red Dawn.
Can I just say something quick? So I want to tell this to Aria. It is incredibly refreshing because I used to be a libertarian for about 8 years myself. But it's incredibly refreshing hearing another person that is libertarian or did become a libertarian that actually has said that about Alex Jones. So thank you, Ariel. That's really refreshing. I want you to know that.
Well,
I don't know. I only know one libertarian who has any sort of respect for Alex Jones.
Oh, I've met. I hope you believe me from my past that I've had quite a bit of dealings with people that love Alex Jones and they consider themselves libertarian.
Look,
but I appreciate that about you.
We brought you on here, Aria, to be the libertarian, so we can use an excuse to say that all libertarians have exactly the same views with certain things, and if they're not real libertarians if they don't have your views. Aria, no.
That's true if the view that they don't subscribe to is that it's wrong to initiate aggression against others. If they don't subscribe to that, then yes, they're not a libertarian.
Well,
yeah, for me. See, if I can just mention this real quick, but if you really look at the political spectrum and how everyone kind of comes together, there is a element that I would even describe myself as libertarian leftist. Now, there's, of course, the Libertarian Party in itself, but the very notions of libertarianism, which is the topic at hand, in the notions how these libertarian leftists, for example, Kyle Kalinske, so on and so forth, they do the self-description because it's all about promotion of individual liberty and such. And that's one of the reasons why individuals like myself would get along or have good conversations, or at least some amicable agreements on many things, like anti-war stance when it comes to trans issues such and such, with a libertarian more than a conservative in a far-right gesture. And that's one of the things I think is incredibly important that people need to address, is how much there could be commonality between both political ideologies, but at the same token, how there are those differences. You know what I mean?
Sure. Well, if only every libertarian was actually a libertarian, right?
True.
No,
But
no,
libertarian, but you have to, but
but
even, go ahead,
even
please.
even here in Keene, there are so many libertarians who are anti-trans, and it's absolutely absurd. It's like, what part of libertarianism confused you? Can we go back in time to the essence of not committing aggression against people and iron out where you became confused and decided that me putting on a skirt was an aggression?
Oh, don't get me wrong, Ariel. I completely agree that when it comes to social issues, libertarians of all facets are all over the ballpark. But when it comes to the precepts of economic systems, libertarians do have a general consensus when it comes to the economics, when it comes to taxation, when it comes into systems of government, when it comes to certain other facets in the economic scale. So I agree completely that social, completely different viewpoints. But when it comes to taxation, for example, this is one of the reasons that drove me away from libertarianism, is the very notions of promoting an economic system where there's a 10% flat tax and where there is no bin basis. It's a historical position to have, of thinking that a 10% flat tax would ever appease a governmental system, even if you advocate for a purely anarcho-syndicalist or ANCAP system. It's just, it doesn't pan out in the math.
Oh,
But
I would agree. Flat taxes are absurd. The only libertarians that I associate with on a regular basis all say the same thing: taxation is theft. I don't know any who are like, oh, well, the flat tax is a good common ground for us to get to. I don't know any who said that.
Well, I was going
I would love to feed the homeless.
gonna-
I
I was-
own a
I was-
church that does exactly that. I mean, we run a food. What is the word I'm looking for? It escapes me at the moment. But people can come here and collect food and bottled
Food
water.
bank.
Yeah, thank you.
Food bank.
So I'm not opposed to these sort of charity organizations. I've probably donated a few $1,000 to the Extra Life Children's Hospital thing that they have going on in Boston. I'm not opposed to charity, and most libertarians I know are not opposed to charity. What we're opposed to is being robbed and told that someone else is going to determine where our money goes.
So I don't frame this incorrectly, but do you have the personal belief that taxation is theft? I don't want to frame what you said about others to yourself, but is that what your position is? That taxation is theft?
In the strictest of terms, taxation is theft, but the slogan "taxation is theft" is useless, and it doesn't convey what libertarians think it is conveying.
Can I respond to
please? Sorry.
Eleni? There is an alternative, and I'm sure Aria knows about this. There's a concept called geo-libertarianism. Have you ever heard of Henry George?
Are you asking me?
Well, I know you have. No,
Okay.
Eleni, have you ever heard of Henry George?
Yes.
Right. Geo-libertarianism is basically the land value tax, because geo-libertarians would agree with any other libertarian, but someone is entitled to the fruits of their labor. But you don't, because you don't create land, you don't own land, right? Therefore, you should be taxed for the value of your land as a means of compensating the rest of society for not having access to that land. Okay, that's one way of putting it, right? Basically, it's called the land value tax. Then that's divvied up, and basically, it's what we now know as the universal basic income.
Yeah. So in regards to that position, there's a problem with that. I agree with the sentiments that you should not be able to tax land that you generally, in principle, should not own. But it's not the taxation of the land itself. It's a taxation of the upkeep of the land. That's the key issue. Every part of our economic system, no matter where it is in the world, has some requirement when it comes to upkeep, when it comes to maintenance of sewers, when it comes to utility functions, when it comes to electricity, so on and so forth. So when someone gets taxed for their land, they're not actually just taxing because it's strictly the land. It's because the taxation supports the infrastructure that is required to maintain such land within our economic system. So anyone who throws out this narrative that, taxation on land is anywhere valid, then they are completely hand waving any notion of the upkeep of such territory
Well,
within.
No.
Well,
Because I largely agree with you, Sophia. But I think that Eliani is thinking too small. Let's think about the reality that humans are going to be colonizing other planets in the relatively near future. In the next 500 to 1,000 years, humans will be colonizing other planets.
Assuming we don't kill ourselves off, but yes.
Right. There will be human beings who go to these resource-rich planets and say, this whole fucking thing is mine. I was here first. None of you can dispute this claim. It's mine. That's all there is to it. Now, the idea of the property tax or the value of the land tax is that, okay, this person wants to make this claim, but this person is going to have to pay into the system the amount of resources that this planet is generating for them. And sure, they will have to use some upkeep in order to get those resources out of the ground or in order to build the infrastructure or whatever is necessary. But eventually there's going let's be real, every inch of ground on this planet is claimed by one person or another. And trying to trace that back to an original owner or a rightful owner is completely asinine at this point. All we can do is go with what is there. The value of the land tax that Georgism is referring to will allow us to solve these problems in the future, but not necessarily the present.
Christy, wait. Christy, was there something you wanted to say? You're holding your hand up.
I actually had a couple of questions because these will clear some of the conceptual stuff up. Toll roads. I know a lot of people go in for the toll road thing. All roads should be toll roads, which
I've driven in New York City. Fuck that.
All right,
LA.
I want
to respond to Eleni.
Well, wait. Let Christy finish. You guys have been talking a lot. Christy should talk a little bit too.
Can I just apologize real quick? I apologize, Aria, for mispronouncing your name. I apologize for that. But please.
It's Aria, so you still did it, but I thank you. I
Aria. Aria. Long arm, gotcha.
Like a song. I can remember that easily.
She's a Final Fantasy fan.
I'm losing it now.
Oh no.
Not the toll roads because that's insane. But the where would you distinguish Ayn Rand libertarians, and do you find that a form of libertarianism?
Is that's a question for me, presumably?
Yeah.
Yes.
Just in general.
I've never read Rand, so I can't fully answer the question. I know a lot of libertarians who reference her, but as far as I understand it, she got a lot of her ideas from Friedrich Nietzsche and then sort of misunderstood them and butchered them. And I prefer going to the sources directly. I'm a Nietzschean Max Stirner type of person.
I call Ayn Rand Nietzsche, a Nietzschean ass rape of Kant, but that didn't get me very far in my philosophy classes. They didn't like that
I would
particular
agree.
one. I got a B for that.
And she denied, being inspired by Nietzsche, but she clearly was. And I mean, there are quotes from her saying that, she considered him one of her greatest teachers, but there's also quotes from her saying that she never read any Nietzsche in her life. So I mean, she was a complete and total fucking.
Well, I was going to say yeah. Hitler was also butchered Nietzsche as well.
He did because Hitler's sister I mean, not Hitler's sister, Nietzsche's sister, she fucking loved the Nazi party. So she twisted a lot of what Frederick wrote in order to appeal to the Nazi party.
Can I just ask, Aria, you're not one of those libertarians who thinks that Hitler was a socialist, are you?
Hitler used whatever mechanism was at his disposal in order to secure the power that he wanted.
Yeah.
I don't know what Hitler personally believed, other than, you know, that everyone who wasn't a straight cis white male with blonde hair and blue eyes, which he wasn't even, needed to die. You know.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I don't know what Hitler was.
Can I?
Oh, wait.
No, hold on.
But he did
use
the Nazi socialism. He used the National Socialist Party as a mechanism for his own grab for power, but that doesn't make him a socialist. I mean, Trump used the Republicans for his grab for power, and he's not a fucking Republican.
Well, yeah, I was going to say the Democratic People's Republic of Korea is not a democracy.
Right.
Yeah.
Hold on. Can I just respond to Eleni before the conversation gets too far?
Eliani. Let's get everybody's name proper.
You all have names that are hard to pronounce.
Alanani. Sorry. Yeah.
My name here, Ozma in the Dark. Easy to pronounce.
Is that for Final Fantasy as well?
No, it's actually. Oh wait.
Because I mean, Ozma is a boss in Final Fantasy IX. He's a hidden.
Oh no! It's a reference to the book because the second book of the Wizard of Oz series, Princess Ozma had been essentially turned into a boy and raised as a boy, and then realized that she was actually Princess Ozma. There's so much trans metaphor there that I just had to use it. Yes, this is the second book. It's like 1904, 1905. It's something somewhere
1903, I think. Yeah.
It was something early 1900s. But yeah, that is the story. She was kidnapped by a witch as a child and raised as the boy named Tipitarius, and then realized at the end of the book that she is really Princess Ozma. And I also want to have like a tag name. That's not my actual name. I mentioned it. I mentioned my full name, which I did not intend to, but whatever. But I want to have something for
can I
labeling.
Respond to Eleanor?
Yes, sorry.
Sorry, I about the land value tax. The way it works is this: say an oil company, right, wants to pump oil out the ground. Now they'll pay a levy for pumping that oil because the oil is a natural resource, but they will profit from refining it and distributing it. That's how it works.
Yeah, and as I was mentioning, I completely disagree with how companies do that, because I'm kind of like a borderline socialist. But when it comes to how they built their infrastructure, when it comes to corporate America, I agree with you that when they reap profits at the expense of the general populace or the general ecology of the area that they're currently drilling or mining or fracking on, there's a extranormal there's a situation where it has prolonged dangers, prolonged problems that come up from such exposure into that area. You're not only destroying the natural ecology of the area, but you're also destroying other facets that can be coming on in the future state. So, but going into what you were saying about the taxation, it still doesn't defeat what my original talking point was, is that when it comes to how taxation of property works in a general state, when it comes to housing, when it comes to your own personal house, or when it comes to in a city environment, or even in a farm, the reason why government systems do a form of taxation is because it's not because of the land itself. That's how it was in the past. But today, the justification for that comes from the notion that the taxation is to provide support to the current societal infrastructures that we've built in place. The taxation money goes to sewer systems. It goes into the firefighters. It goes into police departments. It goes into the infrastructure of electricity, so on and so forth. There's a whole list of things that taxation generally goes for. And that's why any measure of taxation on the land is completely valid, in my opinion.
I was going to say also, Aria, I agreed with you on one thing about tax. flat rate taxes are bad because the poor would actually pay a larger proportion.
Very true.
But you're not going to like
Agreed.
you're not going to like the fact that I prefer progressive taxation.
I prefer no taxation, but if there's going to be taxation, progressive taxation makes the most sense.
Okay, so I wanted to ask 2 questions. One of them is my light silly question, just to chill things out a little bit. Aria, so are there sort of the do you consider there to be how should I put it? Sort of like we talked about this briefly, the sort of false libertarians, sort of like libertarians because they think it's cool to call themselves libertarians and they don't actually believe the system, similar to what happened with hippies in the 60s. There are people who are just like, yeah, it's cool to be a hippie, but like don't actually didn't actually care about the beliefs as much as they cared about partying and getting stoned.
Sure. I don't know how cool it is to be a libertarian, but
it's super cool. No, I'm just kidding.
Even within the groups of people I know, there's very little disagreement about what is and isn't a libertarian. And this is why I started out earlier with the statement about there being 2 types of libertarians, because that's simply my perspective on it. There's the type who just, I'm a libertarian because I like small government, classical liberalism, monarchism, all of that shit. And then there's the type who's like, okay, but all of this ultimately distills to the non-aggression principle, to the idea that it's wrong to initiate aggression against others. In my opinion, that's the only consistent approach that really qualifies one to being called a libertarian, is adherence to the non-aggression principle. And anything beyond that is just at which places you're willing to compromise on that. Like a lot of these classical liberals are like, yeah, I'm a libertarian, but abortion should be illegal. And I'm like, well, okay, so you're an advocate of the non-aggression principle until someone wants to do something that you don't agree with. Got it. And that's ultimately what we come to with all of these classical liberals, these monarchists who call themselves libertarians. And according to the official Libertarian Party, they're libertarians. And according to the Big Tent libertarians, who for some bizarre reason want to fucking win elections in a system that they claim they want to dismantle, they're libertarians, even if they don't actually agree with the non-aggression principle. And to me, the non-aggression principle is the best way to live a life of loving.
But then you fall into there's never a true Scotsman in Scotland argument.
But it's not, because libertarianism is like clearly defined as an adherence to the non-aggression principle. It's like saying that you're a Christian, but you don't believe in Jesus Christ, right?
Can I add to this real quick, Aria, if I may? Actually, it's in agreements with you here.
Sure.
Actually, I agree with you here, because it's the same process when it comes to the generic label of Democrat. If you consider yourself a Democrat, like I consider myself a Democrat, because that's where it's most politically aligned to my ideology. Yet I don't agree with 80% of what Democrats do when it comes to elections, meddling, and so on and so forth. And is that kind of in the same facet of what you're kind of getting at? It's just a generic label, but there's many facets to this one label. Is that kind of where you're getting at?
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Very much so.
I agree with you.
I was going to say Elanani. So I can't pronounce. I'm having problems pronouncing it.
Just call me L. Just call me L.
I'll call you L. So you didn't think Michael Bloomberg was a Democrat then?
No, not by any measure. He is by every measure. I have a background in history, so I actually have almost near associates to history. But Michael Bloomberg, by every measure, would have been considered a Dixiecrat, which is a conservative Democrat. So if you look at the actual standpoints and policies he actually represented and positions he actually fought for, he would have been a Republican light Dixiecrat in today's standards. But in the 1960s, he would have clearly ran under the Dixiecrat label, probably in the South.
Well, Dixiecrats are racist, so we do have to make this distinction.
Well,
There is one of the old Dixiecrats that do remain in the Senate. Shelby of Alabama was a Dixiecrat. So and he's a racist fuck, so
yeah, so but I had a second question which was a little bit more interesting in my opinion. So out of curiosity, is does the problems with taxation have to do? How much of it is to do with the theft, and how much has to do with the because obviously there's been descriptions on how it can be broken down in terms of getting basic stuff done, like roads, oil, all this, not oil, but like sewers, that sort of thing, things that we use. Is the problem ultimately, does it boil down to the freedom thing, or does it boil down to the difficulty it is to trust the government because because of all the corruption in the government, or is it a little bit of both?
It's definitely a little bit of both. Like, look, every dollar that I pay in taxes, I have no way of tracing that dollar. I have no way of knowing if it went to feed some starving family in Ohio, or if it went to buy the latest fucking jet from Lockheed Martin that is going to drop bombs on brown kids in the Middle East. I have no way of knowing that. The American government is just going to take that dollar and they're going to spend it how they want. And they might, because they have to have this show of benevolence, this show of compassion to ring people in, to get them to buy into the statist religion, to continue giving them money, and not just give them money, but to believe it's noble, it's compassionate, it's virtuous to give the government money. So obviously they have these social welfare programs, but every dollar that goes into their system can and probably is used in the war budget to murder people in massive numbers. 250,000 people in Iraq alone killed. The last time I saw the numbers was 2007.
It's a million.
It's a million now. I'm not surprised.
Aria, can I ask you?
Because what does it matter? But let me finish making the point first.
Of course.
Which is that you have no way of knowing when the government takes their money right out of your W-2 because they've convinced employers to act as tax collectors, because otherwise they're going to fucking find these employers, right? Because that's what the government does. You do our dirty work for us, or we won't let you fucking exist. That's the government. And that dirty work that they're doing is feeding into their system, giving them more money that they're using to literally, not figuratively, literally murder people. You want to talk to me about 100,000 Americans dead from COVID-19? Man, that fucking sucks. I'm with you 1,000%, other than the mask thing. Let's not get into that again. But 1 million fucking people killed in Iraq by the United States government, by the people that almost everyone here is on board with continuing to give money to. Because yes, occasionally they will give a pittance to a starving family in Ohio. Well, let's give them $1 million because they might give 100 of it to the starving child in Virginia.
Can I just ask you a couple of things? First of all, would you have less of a problem if the money just went to help people on welfare?
That's exactly what I do here with my church.
Yeah. Also,
I know that I'm not funding the dropping of bombs on people because I'm using the money to buy food and giving the money to people, or giving them the money so that they can go buy food.
Also,
the middleman here is hopelessly corrupt, and the middleman is the government that is also simultaneously killing millions of people. Yeah.
Also, the whole purity thing. I don't know if you've heard of Jeremy Corbyn.
I've heard of him. I don't remember the specifics.
Right. Well, I'm going to want to share screen, so can someone give me permission to in a minute?
Yeah.
I don't know how to do that.
But Jeremy.
Oh wait, you already have
Is
the permission.
he the current Prime Minister of the UK?
No, Jeremy Corbyn was ousted from the Labour Party last year.
Okay.
He was Labour leader, right? And he was basically for I'm sure you heard of Tony Blair. Blair was sort of like Clinton, not very.
Blair was Bush's little secret fuck buddy.
It was his poodle, right?
Okay, yeah. Fuck
anyways,
buddy is the terminology I use.
Yeah. Well, anyways.
Okay, there you go.
Blairites had ruled the Labour Party for more than 20 years, and the Labour Party still described itself as democratic socialist, which was laughable. So when Labour were defeated in 2015 at the general election, Jeremy Corbyn stood as to be leader of the Labour Party. Now, I was a Labour Party member at the time, and I remember the day he announced he was going to run. I said, well, I'll vote for you, Jeremy. I am a socialist, but I doubt anyone else will. But then what happened was, when the Tories had returned to government, they decided, because they didn't have the coalition government with the Liberal Democrats anymore, that basically they could be Tory scumbags and make swinging welfare cuts. The interim Labour leader, Harry Harman, decided Labour were going to abstain on this bill. The grassroots were in uproar, absolute uproar. And that's when I knew Jeremy Corbyn was going to win. And, it was a political earthquake because Labour hadn't had a left-wing leader by that point for 30 years. This was a full-on socialist. This was a guy who wanted to nationalise stuff, wanted a welfare state, full-on socialism.
Right.
Now, the moment he became leader, shall we say, the professional politicians in Labour tried to undermine him. And I'm sure you've heard of the stupid anti-Semite allegations against Bernie Sanders, which are really stupid because he's Jewish. Well,
I have not, but I did read his little essay that he wrote back in the 70s or whatever about how women want to be raped by black dicks or whatever it was that he said. I don't remember the details now, but it was absolutely disgusting.
Anyways, that's me with Jeremy. That was just after he announced he was running back in 2015. He won, as I said. The professional politicians didn't like it. They basically they're too in love with neoliberal capitalism, to be honest.
And don't forget that people within his own party, Jebard, actually, it was released. There was leaked information that showed that Jeremy Corbyn was sabotaged.
Yep. I was going to get to that. In 2017, there was a general election. Jeremy Corbyn came within 2,500 votes of becoming prime minister. That's an electoral whisker.
Yeah.
Right. Now, at that, because part of the reason was Theresa May, the then prime minister, was absolutely fucking awful. Obviously, we know what's happened since. We know that basically people within his own party were running a parallel campaign where they were funneling resources and money to to MPs who were in their ideological group, rather than funneling the resources and money to the more marginal seats, which if Labour had won, Jeremy would have become prime minister. And then, of course, we get to last year with the whole Brexit bullshit. The fact that Keir Starmer, who's now the leader of the Labour Party, was the one who devised the nonsensical, idiotic Labour policy of sitting on the fence about Brexit, when Labour should have gone for a soft Brexit. Labour got trounced, absolutely trounced last December, another general election. And now Jeremy's out. Now we've got Keir Starmer, and he's taking the party back to the centre. Blairism all over again. But what I wanted to say is, obviously, there's a lot of people who are now really upset who joined the Labour Party because of Jeremy, who want socialism, and basically are now being purged from the party. And you talk about, I know I'm being very long-winded here, but you talk about libertarians having arguments about who's purer than other people. Well, you get that with socialists as well. There is an element of that with Jeremy Corbyn, because Jeremy was so far to the left.
Right.
For many socialists, he was a proper socialist, and when he's gone, Labour aren't properly socialist now. But I would always ask them, come the next election, who are you going to vote for?
And we have the same problem with the Bernie guys.
So Ariel, if I can ask this, Aria, I hate that name. Not your name, but the person I'm talking. I keep mispronouncing Aria Scarcella. Aria. so here's my question for you. Okay.
Okay.
Now, I know as a libertarian, like I said, we generally will agree on a lot of things like anti-war and stuff. What, like, in your perspective, like if you look at the Nolan chart, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with that, correct? It's not accurate at all. So libertarianism is an up and down scale of the Nolan chart. Where would you consider yourself in the chart when it comes to left or right? I know you're on the bottom, but are you on the left or right when it comes to being a libertarian?
We don't need to talk about bottoms or tops right now.
No, I think
It's
that's
fine.
a
I'm
pretty,
busy
is that a
being a
pretty fair
switch.
question to ask, Aria.
No, I would agree. I don't know. Economically, I'm probably on the far right in that I tend to lean toward the free market as being the best solution to problems that people have to deal with. But then again, I don't think it's the end all be all solution. The free market is only going to reflect what people put into it, right? If the majority of people are racist, transphobic, homophobic dipshits, then that's going to be the result of a free market system is gay people, trans people, black people, any people who aren't straight cis white males being disenfranchised and marginalized by the system. So the free market isn't perfect. You know, you have to have this social awakening, this, and I hate to use the term, but this spiritual awakening across all of humanity before a free market can possibly result in the values that we want it to result in. So the free
Checks and
market,
balances.
yeah, the free market isn't the end all be all. But it is probably the best solution for figuring out what the majority of people want without initiating aggression against people. That's probably the farthest that I will say on the matter economically. But socially, I'm as far left as you can get.
So by every measure, and again, if don't take this as an insult, but you're a moderate by every measure. So when it comes to economics, you're right. When it comes to social issues, you're left. Is that pretty fair?
I don't know that that's moderate, though.
It is like moderate by every measure.
Well, libertarian.
Well, no, but because it's considered a moderate. Go ahead.
You do you. I will do me. He will do him. She will do her. They will do they.
Well, Aria is moderate. She's not asking for she's not asking for homosexuals to be stoned.
Exactly. So, like I said, in my perspective, Aria, this is just my perceptions. Don't take this as an insult. And again, I can get along with moderates incredibly well. I don't agree with every standpoint, but all I'm saying is, from my perceptions, from hearing your viewpoint on that, basically, you're a moderate when it comes to generally all topics. If you had to culminate into one thing.
Well, that sounds a bit like
if you define moderate or centrist as individualist who doesn't want to use aggression against people, then sure.
Well, no, I consider.
I think that should be the mean position. You know, that should be the average position. That should be the default position. It's okay. I just don't want to use aggression against people. It's really that simple. I don't want to tell other people how to live, and I don't want them to tell me how to live.
Before
if that's what a moderate is today, fuck, man, then well done. Libertarians, great, you did it.
No, but moderates by every measure are people that, if you look at just U.S. standards, I know it's completely different, Sophia, when it probably comes to the U.K. if you say someone's a moderate, but in U.S. standards, someone who's a moderate basically has a person that encompasses generally right-wing views when it comes to politics, because look at the Overton window here in the U.S. We are very far right in comparison to European countries and other places around the world. But if you take the Overton window and you look at it in comparison to everyone else, again, economically and socially, you are a moderate because you have left-wing views when it comes to social issues. That's generally the libertarian viewpoint. That's why they use the label libertarian leftism, like myself. But the way we would disagree is the economic portions of our system. Would you agree with that?
I'm not saying you're wrong, but you're the only person who has ever described me as a moderate. So
I understand.
Wait.
I would also disagree.
I'm here for Perfict if we can.
Yeah.
I would also.
Of course.
Sorry. I was going to say one mistake you make is that social and economic issues with libertarianism aren't separate. For instance, we were talking about, business owners saying who can use their bathrooms. That's businesses should be, libertarians think that businesses should be able to run their businesses how they like. that's an economic decision which has a social impact. So that the two are, you know, joint.
In some measures they are, but we can address this later on because I want to give Perfect chance. But all I'm going to say is you are correct that they are joint, but they're distinctly separate. We can go over that in numerous ways of why I am correct on this.
Wait.
Because I agree with Sophia.
Yeah,
I
I don't
understand.
want to can we not get into that?
Wait. Hear me out. First, Perfect should say something because you've been quiet for a really long time. But after that,
I got plenty of track time earlier.
That is true. Is there anything you want to say? Because we do need to wrap up. We are hitting.
No, I was not looking to be. I was not clamoring to be joining in on it.
Okay.
People were expressing.
I just wanted to bring up one last subject.
Okay, but we are wrapping up, so we can give final thoughts. Everyone can give final thoughts, and then we can do end promotion. Starting with you, Sophia.
I was just gonna say one last.
Or we could talk about the bathroom issue.
No.
Yeah, I would actually like to. Just a minute.
One last subject. It wouldn't be an addition of fluid voice if we didn't mention Blair White, and there's been some drama with Blair. She's quit Twitter and Instagram supposedly because I've heard two different stories. She sent a racist message to someone, but then someone said
the footage was doctored. I actually did a detailed analysis on my Twitter feed. I actually did the video, I recorded it myself. I went from 1,000 frames a second. It's the video that was put out is completely doctored. People, the person that did that is both incredibly homophobic because they call other people the F-bomb all the time. And I don't like Blair White. I am one of her biggest critics. But what she what that person did completely gave Blair White nothing more than a free pass to claim victim. It's a doctored video. I gotta say that up front.
That's what I've heard. I heard Volsh
It's
say
100% doctored. I believe me. I can show you the evidence.
That's it.
Sorry. Do you want to talk about the
Christy,
bathroom thing for just 1 second?
Chris, say your final thoughts. Mention the bathroom thing if you want. Go ahead.
Yeah, I suppose I should get back on camera for this. Sorry about that. I just needed to do something. While I was listening. My biggest problem with libertarianism, and this is the broad libertarianism, not the you have a narrower view, which is cool, and I have generally no problem with that. The idea of the separate bathrooms, the idea of people who are not doing stuff because we're trans, and which doesn't affect me because I live in a city and I can go to the next place, but for someone who lives where that's the only option, that's one of the biggest problems that they would have. They don't have the option to go somewhere else, so they're socially ostracized, and ostracized by the schmuck who won't bake the cake or cut the hair. Cut the hair is actually a big one, which nobody talks about. I don't know why. And I'm not talking about going to shave the balls either. I mean, that's kind of a weird thing to do. I'm perfectly capable of doing that myself. Do
you guys not do an after show, or do you have some sort of hard 2-hour limit on this? Because I feel like there's so much more to hash out.
Well, we can have you on as a guest again. That's always a possibility because we do tend to try to wrap things up and keep things at around 2 hours.
But people usually generally have discussions after the fact off camera.
Yeah, we do have discussions off camera. We're fine with it. Because there's always more to say. Sorry.
I'm not. I mean, if we're going to have discussions about things, I mean, it should be public. But I mean,
Yeah.
also the reality is that I would very much like a cigarette. And Christy there keeps holding hers up. I haven't been.
I know. I promised not to smoke on camera. Broke it right off.
I don't smoke in my house, so I have to go outside.
Okay, so
Okay, we'll wrap up.
But-
If you want to wander back, I'll leave this open for a little
Can
while.
I can I
if
make
you
it?
wanna
Can
do
I
that.
can I make a suggestion real quick, Alex? If you want to continue, why don't we just do this and stop the live stream and then but keep recording, and then you can release it publicly later on the long edit. That's just a recommendation. If that's if that's what
That
everyone
was my
would be on.
recommendation too.
I like that idea.
yeah,
You can do this version, just a short version, and then release the long version if anybody watches it later on, so everyone's happy.
So
I
let me
mean,
hit the
that
gonna-
is fair. But we should
We should take like 10.
well
That's very-
we should mention the final things where you can be
Right.
found and whatnot, and then we can go break. Christy, are you recording?
No.
I am. I will send you both of you the video though as soon as it's finished. I don't.
Well,
I like Aria. I
you-
generally like this person.
Yeah,
You,
I love you. Actually, Aria, seriously, Aria has one of the coolest swaggers of any trans woman I've known.
Anyways, you know,
Do the plugs.
just so you can go off early if you want to take your cigarette break. I'll let you plug yourself first. Where can people find you, Aria?
People can find me in their hearts. I'm the voice of love and compassion. Just ask yourself whether or not it's okay to commit aggression against other people. And if your answer to that is, well, no, it's obviously wrong to hit people. We learned that in fucking kindergarten. Then that's where you'll find me, because all I'm saying here is the stuff that we learned in kindergarten and the stuff that we forgot as we grew older and as we became jaded and accustomed to the society that regularly hits people for no reason whatsoever.
I also put your Twitter and YouTube, if that's okay for people, if they want to.
That's okay. But realistically, this isn't about me. It's about an idea, and the idea is that it's wrong to commit aggression.
Okay.
And
Oh, go on.
No, that's it. That's it.
Okay. Perfect. Still the rumpus room? Perfect? Oh no, Perfect's gone.
Still the rumpus room.
Oh, okay.
And this.
Oh,
And
yeah,
this.
I guess this
Of
is
course
a thing that we do. Christy, how about you? Is there anything you're working? Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot to ask you, Aria. Is there anything you're working on in particular that you would like people to know about?
Well, they can check out the reformedsatanicchurch.com. Well, it's just Reformed Satanic Church. There's no "the" in it. Reformedsatanicchurch.com, because I'm reforming Satanism.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
Christy,
Christy,
where can
of course, has a load of things that I'm doing. I'm doing Sophia. The show that Sophia and I are doing is now going up to 3 days a week.
Enjoyed it so far.
Oh,
Thank
cool!
you.
Thank you. Very much. Thank you. The Trek thing is actually beginning. Steve Shives and Jesse G. Thunder are going to do a special thing for me before that, which I think is so sweet. So that'll be starting this week, probably Saturday. I think Saturday. Yeah. That's Christy Abbey. Just what the name you see on the screen. Just look for it. I'm there. And Chris Abbey Music, without the TY. Chris Abbey Music is back up and running. I'm doing a series of concerts because I'm bored and I want to be back on stage. So look for that. That's a running channel again. I am Normality Quake on Twitter. I have a Twitch account which I can't stream to, so fuck it. I'm not going to promote it.
Okay.
And I think that's it. What am I missing? I'm missing something. You know my shit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I still do the interviews. This week this week is going to be Callan. Next week is going to be Council of Geeks, and the week after that is going to be Dusty Smith. So
Okay.
it's a Dusty.
Um,
So yay.
Sophia, where can people find you?
The best place is on Twitter at Sophia Botha 74. I'm also on YouTube. I forgot my URL for YouTube. Sorry, but it's the bitching hour. Plenty of links on Twitter. I also have a Facebook page, Sophia Botha. Yeah, and what am I working on? Well, just Fermenting Revolution.
Yeah, and I'm Alexandria, also known as Ozma in the Dark everywhere. I try to be Ozma in the Dark everywhere. OzmaInTheDark.com has links to everything everywhere I am, along with the general Fluid Voice schedule, because I don't have anything else really fully scheduled. I'm trying to deal with getting my D&D, which I stream on Twitch. I'm trying to get make an intro song so I can get that stuff off my computer. And this coming up week is going to be filled with Fluid Voice related stuff and some stuff I have to do to there's stuff I have to do with personal stuff that so it's just going to be really busy next week, so I'm not going to be able to get much out.
Can I just quick throw? We're gonna have our Patreon exists. Our Patreon exists for Fluid Voice. It's just not fixed yet. They changed the system again, and now I'm trying to navigate actually having to give rewards to our backers like they deserve anything.
Don't. Yeah,
I'm joking. But the Patreon should be listed below. I don't know if we have a PayPal yet for us, but.
No.
Okay.
I haven't figured that out.
Let's get a coffee account at least. A lot of stuff is happening with Fluid Voice as well, so that's one of the things I'm excited about. All of it. I'm excited about being on air 6 days a week, and I'm excited about talking a lot.
Yeah.